Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. Today we're talking with my good friend Caroline. Hey Caroline, how are you?
Good, and you?
I'm doing pretty good, thanks. How's everything been?
It's been pretty busy, just trying to keep up with everything and the ball rolling and momentum and making a lot of contacts. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, it is, absolutely. What do you do?
Well, I have a couple of day jobs, but this is my mission here for what I'm doing right now with mental health and with veterans and first responders. And I reach out to a lot of civilians too on my Facebook page. So it kind of goes across the board. And I just started in March of last year, just a little blurb writing on Twitter about PTSD and how it affects veterans, but how it also affects civilians and it's not being recognized. And that was the biggest issue I had. No one was going to help me because I wasn't a veteran. So one of the hurdles I had to get through and just do it myself and walk through, and people reached out to me to help. So I had other support, but it wasn't really necessarily trauma informed. And I didn't learn a lot about that until I started writing about it in March of 2018. And then I've just grown so much just from talking to different people and psychologists and psychotherapists mentoring me. And it's been really a great experience. So,
has it been part of a healing process for you as well?
Yeah, I thought I was healed and ready to move forward. But once I started talking about it and learning about it, it's definitely healing, because there were issues that come up with, including the post this morning. I knew there was a name for the hair pulling and the nail biting. I just never put my finger on it. But it's like, oh, okay, well, yeah, we could say that in my childhood and in part of my adulthood, that was part of me too.
I think anyone who's been through anything has some sort of unhealthy coping mechanism. Cutting, yes. Drugs, booze, hair pulling, whatever
Yes.
it is. It's just something that is a complete mental distraction for, if nothing else, but a moment.
Right. Yeah. And I find that it's interesting that when you talk to most people, they are being affected by mental health in one way or another, or they know another person who's had PTSD or still has PTSD. And then we started talking about the severity of mental health, the issues they're facing, and how difficult it's been for their family to get help, and then to support the loved one through it, because often that person feels abandoned by family. So, a lot of those issues come into play, and we have to have those conversations openly. And at my other day job that I started working in retail, when I was sick, they hired me. Even though I was medicated, I was sick, and they just believed in me and shot me forward. And I've got my customers starting to talk to me. So it's really been kind of an awakening to be able to share that conversation. And I've been offering my little business card saying, you need anything, I can connect you. I've got a network of nonprofits and professionals and peer support that can help you move forward so you're not alone. But the response has been overwhelming. And then there's some days that are really touching, and I got to take a step back and take time out for me.
I hear you. Sometimes it's hard to say no, and you feel like you're on momentum, and if you stop, then you're never going to get momentum back. And there's all that,
yep.
Well, wait a second, do I deserve to have the time to take care of myself when I should be taking care of someone else? And
yeah, and even recently, I've been more aware of what I used to do in the past. I'm starting to do again, and I can't do it because I'm going to end up sick again. And so I put up the yellow flag for myself and go take time out, or go to the doctor, or whatever it needs to be, or maybe even change eating better and set that up for me on a schedule, so that whatever I was doing in my early years, the injury was definitely a wake-up call, and I won't be repeating. And it goes for my relationships too. I find that they're more honest and more real. And right away, when I sense that there's an ulterior motive, like the mission for the Veterans Walk or something, I just walk away, because I just can't deal with going down that path and pleasing someone else. And, it's not going to happen. So it's been interesting, because I've learned to say no finally. And that's hard. And I don't accomplish it every day, I'll be honest. I have to work at it. But I do give myself more time to mull things over and have the response that I think is in the best interest of what I want to do, and also keep me healthy.
With some people that I've worked with, I even almost tell them, okay, you know what? If you wake up and you're really super depressed, that's great. Let yourself be depressed till noon. At noon, that's enough. Do something to change it. Go have a bath, have a shower, eat some ice cream, something that's for you.
Yeah, I think that's a great tool that you just mentioned right there. And it's really hard for people to have that awareness, because they think they should just be going and going and going all day long. And it's society's idea of what a woman should be and what a man should accomplish and this and that. And it's time to break down those walls and say, let's get real. Not everybody keep up with that pace. pace.
You know what? It's a North American pace. It's not a rest of the world pace. Because I have done some traveling, and in Europe, they chill out. They have a nice big lunch. They take their time. They go back to work. They get their shit done. Everything's cool. Same thing in Colombia. You go to Colombia, it's too hot between 12 and 2. So nobody goes to school. Everyone's running around madness and chaos. And those people are less stressed. They're poor. They're more generous. Their rates of sickness and disease are 100% lower than ours. And we're just running around like chickens with our head cut off to accomplish we're not sure what.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the goal is at that point, because it's no more about family. I've talked to other parents who say their kids are totally stressed out. And then I relay the message that I felt when I was raising our kids or we were raising our kids, and it was too much chaos. It was too much keeping a schedule, meeting someone else's needs. It's like, wait a minute, we need to take time out for us to be a family, or for us to relax and at least have a breather and create whatever we want to create. Maybe it's even Legos. And yeah, that was life-changing awareness, but a little too late. I mean, I tried to put brakes on as much as possible, but she even felt pressure in school. Both of them did. So it's kind of weird.
Perfectly, quote, healthy people with no mental illness, and they have the same trouble with their kids as everyone else does.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, exactly. And that's what's baffling to me, that some people think that they're on a better track than others who have mental health. It's like, no, that's not the case. You're just not answering the questions that are surfacing, and you're just whizzing right by them, and life will kick you in the butt and make you pay attention.
I firmly believe that 95% of society is walking around with fake mask on every single day, and the 5% of us who don't are a little bit ostracized.
Yeah, it's interesting because recently I've run into a couple of people who me before my accident and injury and mental health illness, and they want to have the same relationship with me now, and it's no.
No, you're a different person.
Yeah, not doing it.
You can't go backwards on some things. And if you do, you usually end up getting kicked in the ass again.
Yeah.
Like there's a reason things end the way they do, whether it be a relationship or a friendship. There's always something behind it. Not karma, but there's a reason. There's a purpose for everything. And whether you figure it out or not, there still is.
Yeah, I believe that. And going to that statement, and I know it's hard to hear for some who still are in a whole lot of pain. I do believe there's a reason for everything. I'm not saying that you're supposed to be traumatized, but I think everything else that happens after that, there is a reason, and you need to move forward, and you need to relearn something and get better space and hold better boundaries for yourself.
Yeah, and also, you know what I find for me, like even on my shittiest days when I wake up and I'm like so suicidal in the morning, I may post a couple of things, and then I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm feeling shitty. Let's see if I can post nice things for other people, if that helps me. So then I just post all of them. I know people are thinking, okay, this chick's got to be crazy, because like an hour ago, she's like posting death shit. Now she's like Miss Positivity. I'm like, well, that's BPD.
I apologize, Jody. Before I stepped into the pool, I had a more naive outlook on life. And I thought every day you should just be 100% positive and 100% go get there. And it's like, oh no, there's moments I drive by something and I'm just instantly hit with grief. I can't explain it. It's there. And then it takes me another hour or two, or maybe the evening, to figure out, oh, that's what that was. So yeah, I think truly 100% that most of the people, I want to say 70% of the people around me are walking on with blinders. Okay. And they just think that they're here to make money and reach the accomplishment, get the fine house. And it's like, let's go to the UK. Let's be real. Let's talk to each other about what really concerns the rest of the world, which is climate change, pollution, traffic. We don't address what really needs to be addressed. And trafficking for the US is so heavy and so high up there that no one really wants to talk about it. And so it's just been horrendous. And for me, I don't think I'd love to get involved. Before I got sick, I really would have gotten involved. But being on the street for a year for homeless and being accosted a couple different times, I know for me, what I saw around me in the surroundings, yeah, it was everywhere. And I was lucky that I didn't get taken. So I don't think at this point in my life that I can handle helping something directly with that. I might donate, but I can't walk in that door. That it's really horrendous and a form of control. It's just mind-boggling. And yeah, I can't get that close to it, because then I really do start thinking about my time on the street, and then I really get depressed. depressed and start worrying again. And I get anxious when I'm walking around and I feel that trigger and it's like, okay, I can't think about it. We're good. I'm all right.
But you walk around hyper alert. And I'm assuming from being homeless, I spent some time in the streets when I was a kid, is that you are aware of everything within half-mile radius, circular behind you, before you, up and down.
Yeah, it's not funny, but yeah, I don't know if anybody else is aware of it. I think my kids are aware of it even now, but they said I had that before I was sick, that I was anxious and worried before I was sick, which is probably true because I was depressed. I had been assaulted in our house. And so, yeah, the constant 7 years of living in that house with the neighbor harassing us, continuously stealing from us, and then also assisting the guy to get in. Yeah, I'm kind of toast. So I'm sharing a room now, not sharing a room, but I'm sharing a home. I rent a room and I have a lot of freedom in there. And I got thinking, wow, how is it really going to be when I get my own place back? I don't know. It's going to be a huge impact on my life because my number one concern is going to be safety. How safe can I make it? Besides the neighborhood, am I going to be able to sleep at night? I really don't have that answer at this point in time. It's been a blessing to live with this couple and have them be there and know that they're not there all the time. Sometimes they go away for the weekend, but first weekend they did that. It really threw me. I'm like, wow, okay, I'm really here alone. Crap.
It's a self-reliance. You just realize there's nothing and nobody but yourself. And in a way, it's good because human instinct kicks in and we somehow survive, but it doesn't mean we mentally survive.
It means we're mentally alert, very keen. Even when I drive through places, even when I'm on the road, I was always aware of looking back behind me because of accidents and stuff and working as an EMT once before. But now, I'm worried. Not all the time, but I'm definitely aware. And then I'm aware of the places that I go out. If I go out at night, where I'm comfortable, I'll go, and that's it. I've been wanting to go to a couple concerts. I really wanted to go to this fireworks event for July 4th. I don't know if I can do it because I usually stand or stay miles away from where they're lighting it off. And so I don't know if I can handle that kind of noise level so close right up front in front of me, even though it's going to be a celebration with a lot of fun people. But yeah, the noise is like, maybe we'll leave before it starts.
And I know it's pretty and nice and all, but people don't have a thought that it could be, never mind how animals are hiding under the bed. There's a lot of human beings hiding under the bed as well.
Yes. Yeah. And so, I say sometimes that I'm recovered. And when I was saying that on Twitter a couple times and on Instagram, I really offended myself because it was like, no. It's not really recovered. You build a life on top of the trauma and you move forward as best you can, but you realize that things are going to get you and trigger you and you're going to talk about it. And hopefully there'll be someone understanding with you. And if there's not, I really don't care. I mean, I'm going to handle the situation where I need to feel comfortable. And if that means leaving the area and going to a more quiet place, I'll do it. And so that was one of the things when I was riding light rail until I got the car in January. Yeah, I was always concerned about who was standing next to me, who was sitting behind me, because last year we had an incident where the gal got assaulted on the light rail. And so it's like, okay, so you can't sit down and you just have to be safe. But it was my only mode of transportation for like 3 years. And then I finally got a car in January and went, wow, okay, now I feel better. It made a huge difference. But I would like to say that this awareness is better in a lot of ways because I'm more prepared for something if it happens. I'm more likely to survive the next incident if it happens, where a lot of people just walk around and they just naturally think that everybody is going to be okay and everybody's going to be good and they're not going to hurt them or anything. Quite honest, in today's age and the way we see shootings that are so common, that's not the truth. You need to watch out where you're going and you need to watch out who you're with. And
it's like trust for me. Everyone's like, oh, it's not fair that you don't start people out with trust. What? No. I don't give a shit what you think is fair or not. In my life, you earn trust. It is not something that is given at 100% and then we knock down by percentages every time you hurt me. We start with 0 and we work our way up.
Right. Yeah. And it's so true. When I talk with different people and I meet them for the first time and we just start talking, and most of the time I just listen, and then they ask me, oh, you got injured, what happened? And then I'll tell them the whole story in short. And they're like, wow, okay, you're here now. And I'm like, yeah, I was determined to get here. But, I learned a long time ago, it was up to me. It wasn't up to anybody else, because obviously when I asked for help, the answer was, let's over medicate you.
Yes.
Let's give you another medication. Let's put you in a care home instead of actually getting me my own room, getting me a job, getting me back on my feet. Not so much financially, but on a routine that would help drive my motivation.
We have a lot of homeless in Toronto that, the business people just walk and step over every day like they don't exist. And I keep wanting to remind people, like 60% of Canadians are like one paycheck away from losing their home and being homeless, because that's just the way the market is going. And second of all, it's just a different society nowadays. People just aren't as giving. They're just more selfish, and it's more I. And they assume, you're on the street because you're a drunk or you're a drug addict or whatever the case may be. That's not. You just might have lost your home and your job and your wife and your kids, and where are you supposed to go? And then they're like, well, get a job. How are you supposed to get a job if you don't have an address, a cell phone, or a shower?
Right.
Nobody thinks outside the circle of why the circle keeps continuing.
Right.
All you offer up is a shelter where you have to stay awake at night or tape your shoes to your feet.
Yeah. The shelters are really a hard place to be, because the people that have survived so long being homeless, they're very threatening, and they will take anything that you have for them. And they know you can't stop them because you're already too scared to be there to begin with. Yeah. So I lasted one night, and then that was it. And the guy that was in there, also there, had tried to accost me. Either he wanted me out so another friend come in because we'd reached the limit, or he did truly want to hurt me. And so, even the office staff who was in the next room over, she just turned her back and let it go. And it went on for about an hour. I tried to sleep, and then I could hear he was walking toward me. And I gave up after that. I told her what was going on, and I left. And it's not like she wasn't permitting it.
Yeah.
So, it's a rude awakening. It really is to be homeless. You have to dig deep. You have to keep your routine. You have to stay clean and focused and keep your wash clean and everything. And for me, I would just pick up all my little stuff that I had just to sleep, and I'd put it back in my storage shed, and I'd start all over every day. And I'd try and meditate and focus on what I wanted to accomplish that day to make sure that I got coffee, I ate, and then at least talk to a few people. And then they'd start talking to me, and they're like, you're not homeless. You don't look homeless. I'm like, I'm working real hard to not look like homeless. Thank you.
I said to the psychiatrist that I have now, first time I went in, I was in a baseball cap and track pants and like a t-shirt that was like all shitty. And I said to her, you know what? I purposely dress like this, even though I'm so insecure to go out. So when I go out, at least I'm presentable. Yeah. But I purposely dress like this because I've walked into psychiatrist's office who automatically judge that I cannot be mentally ill if I'm well put together.
Right. Yep.
I'm like, okay, but you don't understand that I'm too insecure to leave my house if I'm not well put together. It's just an automatic judgment.
Yeah, there is a lot of automatic judgment from those that don't have lived experience. And the more I reach out to professionals and connect with them online, they kind of share a little bit with me why they're in this business of helping people. And a lot of them, like the psychotherapist in Australia, Elise Tobler, who's giving her senpai communication model, she's handing it out free to hundreds of troops and hundreds of home care places and hundreds of children's hospitals and stuff. And she's doing this. She's been in the business for years, but she also has lived experience. She's like, no, we need to build communication within each other and to our next door neighbor and the next door neighbor after. And then we can start healing what's been going on.
Oh yeah. Generational trauma just for years and years and years.
Oh, yeah. That was part of my trauma, too, with PTSD. It was stuff that happened with my mom in the house, and then stuff that I didn't even realize had happened to me in the house until the memories came up.
Yep.
Yeah, that was a good one. And her war stories from World War II had haunted me also. And then I had the EMT stuff come up on a couple of horrific calls that I probably will never forget, but I finally forgave myself. And then, getting assaulted in my home, which my family still has trouble dealing with because the police report never got accepted. They're like, well, how did it happen? Well, if I knew that, you think I wouldn't have stopped it? After it happened the first time, I took my kid's bat and I was living with that underneath bed. But once I had PTSD and figured out how it got done and why I was drugged, it was like, The back was not usable for me. I wasn't conscious to do that. But, hindsight is 2020. So yeah, for me, it changed to get my own place. Yeah, I'm going to be grateful, but at the same time, I'm going to have at least a couple of months of, man, I wish I could sleep going through my mind.
Yeah.
Hopefully I won't, but I don't know. I think maybe if I'm out in the country, I'll be able to find that peace again. I had a couple of years before I actually got sick, just this heavenly place that I got to rent and with one of my kids there. And we both just appreciated the peace and quiet so much. And for some reason, when I was there, I already knew I would not be there for long. This was just something good for me for right now that I could reach back to in my memory and say, there is a place of peace.
I remember saying to my mom when I was very young, and I was adopted at 18 months, so I was maybe about 5 or 6, I was born in the wrong country. I'm not meant to be here. I am meant to be in a place where the culture is slower and more friendly, and you know your neighbors. You don't, like in Canada, half the people don't even know their neighbors anymore.
Yeah.
You have no idea what their names are or what's going on. It's just not the way I live. I don't like materialism. It doesn't make sense to me. I've spent time with rich people and I've spent time with poor people, and I really, really prefer poor people, to be quite honest with you. And I'm not talking like homeless poor. I'm talking about dirt poor. They have one loaf of bread for a week and they'll still cut you a slice.
Yes. Yeah, I know. We've lived next to poor people. We've been those poor people. And that's been part of our issue in our family that I've been trying to change, because I realize that if you follow your passion, everything else is going to put right in, and including how you're going to, make living. But part of my issue was my mom's kind of self-belief that she didn't deserve to be successful. She didn't deserve to have a good life. And so every 6 months when family called, man, that trauma just rang back up. And it ran back up with alcohol. And for a week, it was a disaster. And I knew when I was growing up, I never wanted to live that way.
I was about 18. I made a conscious decision that I would not have children because I could not guarantee them not going through something that I went through. And to me, the risk just wasn't worth it. So for me personally, I was like, I will suffer alone rather than if I can't change something, or if a personality trait comes out that shouldn't. I don't want to have the power to affect someone like that.
Right. When we were first married and I waited, a couple of years at least before I decided to have kids with him, I don't think it was that as much as a concern of that I made the right decision at the time. And I was kind of holding back because I had an idea that I wanted to get into science to begin with. And I didn't do it because the relationship was codependent and I made those decisions codependent, and it became whatever you wanted to do, so-and-so, we'll go with your plan. So it's not like I didn't agree to it, but when I did have kids, I felt that peace. I don't know what it was. With each pregnancy, I just felt this overwhelming sense of peace. And I knew with that, eventually it would be okay. But even though there was still too much work, too much this, too much that, and stressing over bills.
It's all worth it anyway.
Yeah, I decided it was worth it. And now the other side of the injury and the illness, all I can think of is I want to leave a legacy. I want to leave something that meant my journey was more than just my journey. Because even when I was homeless, it became quickly apparent that those that had been homeless longer than me had lost hope, and they were definitely worse off than I was. And it was really humbling to be able to hold a conversation with someone who hadn't had a bed in years, who was a veteran and shared his life with me, and he was homeless in a wheelchair. To talk to other veterans when I was homeless, and yet they'd share their life story with me in an hour. Very humbling that they welcomed me in, and they left the biggest impact on me. And then there were other few good people that were complete strangers that left a nice impact on me as well. But there were some that definitely saw the vulnerability and wanted to take advantage.
Oh, there always will be.
Yep. And it was very disheartening. And, I've known a few of them for years, and 1 hour long conversation just totally changed my whole perception of who I thought they were.
When you're in a state of crisis, then you know who your friends are.
Exactly.
I have a lot of acquaintances, but the number of friends you had, I played soccer for so many years. I had like hundreds of soccer acquaintances and a good handful of friends. When I got sick, I have 3 friends.
I don't know. I think in hindsight, what I want to accomplish wish is I want to reach out to others. I want to know that they know they're not alone. I've got people at my retail job, because I'm a cashier over there. They reach out to me and somehow they already either knew it or someone told them or something. And we have great conversations. And then there's conversations where I know I'm not a professional. I don't have a degree. I can't help you, but I can recommend who you can go to. Yeah, there's an incident just recently where I've been just reviewing it in my mind for the last week because I don't have the professional skills to help address it. And I'm going to back up the truck and I'm just going to be honest and say, look, this is my effort for peer group. I'm going to focus on what my lived experience is going to be. Even though it's a great handful, I can't speak for what you need to do to help turn your life around. And I'm just going to stick with what's in my gut and what I know passionately, what I want to do. And if it makes a little money, I really don't care because I've already worked so hard to get this office job set up. I'm so grateful after 5 years, I finally got a permanent job.
Good for you.
I'm not going anywhere unless something really blessed happens. And so for me, it's a lot of hard work, but I don't mind. My kids are both grown. I'm helping them move forward, at least with our relationship. And I've had to learn a lot about patience with that because it just doesn't happen overnight. And even some families still don't seem to realize that PTSD or CPTSD is something that happens to anyone. Yeah. So I'm having to break that wall and say, hey, after 5 years, you could have sat down and done some research and said, oh, I guess you were right.
It really doesn't matter if you watch someone get shot in Iraq or if you watch someone get shot in Toronto. It's the same trauma. Every person will process it differently, but it's the same trauma.
Yeah. And what becomes the focus after that is, and I had to admit later last year, is there are different severities. It can be complex or compound. And like narcissistic abuse can create that same repeated trauma and it will be a complex PTSD.
Oh, yeah.
You can't get away from it. Yeah, can't get away from it.
PTSD too, at some point in time, someone has kicked the shit out of your confidence. So getting that back for me personally is the hardest thing that I'm not even 10% there. So someone says something nice, I have to stop in my head and say, if I don't say thank you, I'm insulting someone else's point of view. You may want to say something nice, right? I have to shut up and say thank you. And that's something that I have to learn to do instead of saying, oh, no, but, or this, or but that, or, oh, you need glasses, or whatever the case may be, right?
You're so right on there.
Condemn what you are.
Yep. You're so right on there. For me to accept the compliment has been really hard. I've been able to do it online, but in person, I don't accept it well. I just don't. I haven't from birth, from my mother, from the one thing she said to me that kind of carried over to the marriage. I just haven't been able to accept the compliment. And it's been one of those things that I'm trying to change. So yeah, it's an ongoing process, but hopefully someday I might accomplish it.
Well, you're doing a great job today.
Thanks. So are you, because you brought up great points that, we don't talk about when we have injury and mental health and mental illness. And I don't like to say that it's so much an illness as it is.
It's an injury, and I don't understand why somewhere along the way, I'm writing a blog about this right now, is that medical society detached the head from the rest of the body. They decided that the brain is not a muscle nor an organ, and it's its own thing. Now, I understand that you're already limited by the brain to study the brain. So that's your first problem. And your second problem is if you don't treat it as an organ, you wouldn't go in with a damaged liver and someone say, oh, okay, let's try one of these 19 medications. And if you don't kill yourself, come back and see me in 17 weeks, because that's the next time I can get an appointment, right?
Yeah. And that's what's amazing, because when you try and explain your flashbacks, when you're really going through the flashbacks and they don't stop, and it was so intense for so long, thought I'd clear it the next morning. And then, oh no, there was something else that triggered it again. And I was reeling. And it started with the body. It started with my fear in the body first, and then my head just went flying. And there was no control. And it took me to walk out of that environment or whatever the scene was that started a replay in my head to get it to tone down. and then it became also a sound issue because my hearing was impacted from the head injury. I had to deal with sound being distorted in my right ear, and that took months to resolve. And at first it wasn't an issue when I had the head injury, but as pressure got worse, it created the hearing problem. So trying to explain that to my family and the doctor and the friends, and they're like, what? I'm like, no. I can't explain it. It all plays in the same part. And so, to get the sound back in my right ear, the reaction of my brain for the communication, it just set it on fire every single time. And I couldn't get anybody to say, oh yeah, it's going to get better, or we can do something for that. Nothing.
Well, you know what? I think the more people that talk out or speak out, and the more people that write, and I'm encouraging anyone who wants to come on here to tell their story, or even have, if they're shy, I've told them they can send me their story and I'll tell it for them. Everyone's story deserves to be told, because everyone's story will help someone else. Even if you don't think it will, it always will. You're always going to have words that are going to affect somebody across the other side of the world that you have no idea about. So to be vulnerable enough to release your story, it's empowering after you get past the fear.
Yeah, it is. I mean, for me to sit back and finally realize that my mom's World War II stories, which she repeated only to me, I found out, not my other family. It's like, okay, why? After years that it ended, I'm still going through it. I'm still going through those horrific moments and walking through those villages and feeling her desperation. And I know at that time she was homeless. And I know she did the amount of walking that I ended up doing, being homeless. So to me, I just felt like I was walking out her generational trauma, and I had to change that when I got off the street.
Like me, you had to become like a parentified adult when you were a child.
Yeah, because she came to me when she was 11, and I wrote about it. And I was in the bedroom at the time, and she admitted to me that weekend that she wanted to commit suicide. And we spent hours that morning. No one else was in the house. It was just me and her. And she just cried. And I knew it was because of whatever loss she was feeling of family she left in Germany, and the kids she left in Germany. She took us and remarried, but she didn't take the rest. And I think she felt responsible for that. And she always had this fear of getting her documents renewed every year. She never became a citizen until it happened years later. And she always had a fear of, being returned for something. I have no idea what she feared, because she never shared the rest of that story with me. So we had to carry it, or I had to carry it. And it's like, I think I even texted it to my other family member one time. If she would have shared the same things with you, guess what? You'd be going through the same thing. And so didn't get a response back, but it was a wake-up call. It's like, hey, no one leaves unscathed. They really don't.
No, absolutely not. In one way or another, everybody's got their trauma. As I said before, it's just who decides to take their mask off and who decides to leave it on for life.
Yeah, I really can't see myself living the rest of my life the way I was before I got injured. And I think the accident and the head injury was just a force that said, okay, that's enough. We're making changes.
Everyone's got their breaking point or their rock bottom, where they hit that point where it's either, it's death or change. One of the two.
Yep.
Because there's really no other option at the point.
That's true. I know when I had the fall, the thought in my mind was, and I heard it clearly, I heard myself thinking it, this is it. And I barely got my fingertips on the ground and lifted my face off the ground and went, okay, I don't think I passed out. But yeah, for a few minutes there, I sat and I took it in and went, oh man, that was huge. It could happen to anybody. It could be a car accident. It could be seeing someone else's trauma. It could be cancer. It could be anything that hits you in your life. It's a chance to have a second opportunity to make your life what you want it to be.
And I think if you have been through life experiences like that, it's almost a responsibility to share it with others, to try and prevent it, or at least to educate the mass amount of ignorant people that seem to have very large opinions and very small brains.
Yeah, it's an opportunity, that's for sure. I mean, if you don't keep the conversation going, knowing what was the purpose of the journey. And I can't, even when I take a break, I'm on the phone, I'm checking a contact, I'm giving someone else kudos for their experience so they'll have a conversation with me. I want to have that conversation, and I want to ask them those questions for the next person that walks in front of them and says, this happened. What do I do next? And how do you handle that? And I want people to be prepared, and I want people to have more compassion. Number one, more compassion.
I took a trauma-informed course for 6 months, which gave me a lot of new coping mechanisms to pass along to others. It helped me heal, but it help me help other people heal.
Oh, that'd be great.
Being trauma informed, I think, is so important and so underrated. The therapists that I have found and have had connections with, they are both just randomly happen to be trauma informed. So I didn't have to inform them about what trauma informed means and what they should be doing.
Awesome.
It's just kind of luck of the draw, I guess. But I've been through 12 psychiatrists and finally found one that believes me on the 13th. Because as soon as you say you have borderline personality disorder, they pretty much wash your hands and push you out the door. You don't want to deal with the diagnosis that you just gave out. So either stop giving it out or deal with it.
Yeah, and that's not what we need to do. We need to have these conversations and keep them open and keep them moving and keep them positive, because it's very stressful for the person not to be heard. It's very stressful for the person not to be validated.
The article that's pinned on my Twitter page, the one I put in the Mighty, it went kind of viral, and I've got like probably thousands of messages in my inbox from people. And sometimes it's thank you and I don't have to do anything. And sometimes there's this enormous message that at the bottom they're saying, oh my God, I'm so sorry, but I don't know what else to do. Those people need to be heard and validated. And after being validated, you should, people need to understand that the head point of suicidal crisis in particular is 10 to 20 minutes. And that's it. You need to get over that hump, and you need to do whatever you do. Dance, spit on your head, talk to somebody, eat ice cream, whatever you have to do for that 10 to 20 minute period to get over it. And often what I do is just listen. Tell me more. How can I help? What can I do? I feel for you. I understand. I empathize. Those are what people need to hear.
Yes, they do. They do. And I take a lot of time and just talk to people or start the conversation, and then they'll talk to me. I had one young man walk up to the counter last night, and I had to move him to a self-checkout. And he honestly just said to me, I just wanted the interaction. And I'm like, I turned around and I didn't look him in the eye, but I quietly said, that's a good thing. And I thought he'd continue talking, and he didn't. I just walked him through his process and his sale, and I realized he was just reaching out. And I wanted to give him my card, but I didn't have enough time.
Sometimes people don't have the ability to start the conversation. And that card right there is a conversation starter and a place of safety.
Yes, that's what I'm hoping it's going to represent. Jody, it's been really nice talking to you.
I know. I was going to say, you've got to go back to work. I know, love. Thank you so much for your time. I so appreciate it. And we'll do this again if you want, anytime.
Yes, that sounds great.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
No problem. You have a great day.
Facilitator.
Oh, thanks so much.
You too.
Okay, you take care.
All right,
bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, as we wrap up the show, I would like to give a special thanks to our guest, Caroline Cook, for sharing her story and her time with us. If you enjoyed today's show, please make sure to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss another episode. If you have any comments or questions or wish to be a guest on the show, you can message me at OneLastKick71 on Twitter, Jody BEE on Facebook, or through my website, jodybetty.com. Links can be found on the podcast website. Thank you for spending your time with us. Hopefully we can help to eliminate or at least reduce the stigma surrounding mental health. Until next time, take care and be well.